Guys, I've just sat down to make this video and I checked my KDP dashboard, and another one of my scrapbook paper pads that hasn't sold before has just sold. And I think it's messed up a lot of the screenshots and things that I've taken for this video, but never mind, we're going to carry on anyway. If you're not into all the statistics and the nuts and bolts of the numbers and things like that, then this is probably not the video for you. Hello and welcome back to Sparrows and Business Diaries. I'm Mel and I make videos all about creative ways you can make money online, and I also make lots of work from home lifestyle vlogs. What I thought I'd do today is give you an update on how the scrapbook paper side or kind of element of my KDP income stream is doing. I've made, I think, 2 or 3 scrapbook paper book focused KDP videos in the past, and for those of you that watched them, you might be interested to know how things are going. And considering I haven't really added that much to my scrapbook paper business, there has still been some progress, and I still have this really high hit rate. And I've written loads of information and things down in my notebook, which I will be using and kind of reading from in a minute, and I have taken some screenshots. But if things don't match up completely, it's because of that one extra sale that I have just had today. And I'm going to show you again on screen the spreadsheet that I'm using just to track this particular pen name. I've obviously redacted the titles of the scrapbook paper pads, but you can sort of see the different columns that I've got and the different things that I'm trying to track and the kind of direction that I'm going in with things, hopefully. So when I first looked at that this morning, it showed me that 27 out of 36 scrapbook paper pads had made at least one sale, and then that has just changed and it's gone to 28 of the 36 have made a sale, which means that 78%, so almost 80% of my scrapbook paper pads are still making at least one sale, which, although that's lower than my original percentage, if you go back at the end of this video, if you go back and check the first one, I think it was on like 90 something. But I had far fewer scrapbook paper pads at that point, and I knew that as soon as I started adding some more, I kind of thought, oh god, this is going to go down dramatically, and I'll kind of have to come on and say that to people, which I would, because those of you that have watched my channel for a while know that I share the downs a lot as well as the ups. But anyway, a surprising thing happened. Well, at least it was surprising to me to start with, and then I kind of realised why my hit rate is so good. But yeah, to start with, I was really surprised that I have kind of maintained a fairly high percentage of scrapbook paper books that make sales. Some of them, I will say, and you can see on the spreadsheet, have only sort of made a few sales. They're sort of on the spreadsheet in order of when I publish them as well. It's not completely accurate in terms of when I publish a book, I don't always remember to put it straight onto the spreadsheet. Sometimes I've published, you know, half a dozen scrapbook paper books on KDP and I don't update the spreadsheet for, you know, 2 months or something. But roughly speaking, the order that you can see, I'm going to move over because I need to create space to put that that screenshot on. They're mostly in order. So some of the ones that have sold the least are towards the bottom, and that kind of makes sense because they are the most recent ones to be added. I recently sold one book for the first time that I uploaded way back at the beginning. What I had done is I had created a scrapbook pad, and then I made, I think, 3 or 4 different colorways for it, and all of the other colorways have sort of sold or started selling. But for some reason the green colorway just didn't really hit the spot with people, but it has finally sold a copy. And actually when I look at it now through sort of slightly more experienced eyes with kind of making the scrapbooks, I can see why the shade of green that I picked perhaps doesn't really appeal. It's not a trendy shade of green like sage green or anything like that. So if I was to make it again, and maybe I will, I would make it slightly differently. Anyway, that's kind of where we stand in terms of the percentage of the books that I upload that sell at least one copy. You can also see on there that I've now got, you know, quite a lot that have made 5 sales or more, 10 sales or more, and then there's a handful of them that are kind of 20 sales or more, 50 sales or more, and then I think I've got one that's around 70 something from what I remember. And whilst I am not sat here saying that I'm creating these incredible scrapbook pads that are going viral or anything like that, I think you can see that I am building a consistent scrapbook paper brand that is making fairly regular sales. And the big thing for me is when I'm creating scrapbooks, I'm not working to the principle of, oh, only 20% of, you know, my books will sell, or that there's going to be wasted effort. I'm going to make, you know, spend ages making these really beautiful scrapbook paper pads and they're not going to sell. When I'm making them, I'm thinking actually this effort is going to be worth it, because over the course of a year, I'm probably going to get at least, you know, £20 or like $25, $30 for it, because it's at least going to make a few sales for me. And then every so often something just takes off a little bit and, you know, makes quite a few. Some of them are seasonal as well, and they've only had like one of their seasons, so you know, I think I've got like a couple of Christmas ones on there. They obviously haven't sold very much recently, so they're kind of languishing, and they only went on last Christmas. They are a little bit more established in search though, so I'm expecting in the next 2 or 3 months that those ones will pick up again. But yeah, that's the picture basically. If you're not into all the statistics and the nuts and bolts of the numbers and things like that, then this is probably not the video for you. But I like taking a little bit of a deep dive every so often, especially when I'm trying to understand why something's working. I think that's as important as looking into when something isn't working. So that's where we've got to so far. Some other things that I took a look at as well is over my sort of lifetime sales, my top 10 books over the entire time that I've been on KDP, out of my top 10 books, 7 of my top 10 best sellers, so not necessarily the ones that have made me the most money but that have sold the most copies, 7 out of the 10 are scrapbook paper, which is, you know, pretty good. And then this year 8 out of my 10 best selling books are scrapbook paper. I think one of the others is a notebook that's always sold well, and I think the other one's the one in a new niche that I experimented with, and it kind of has done quite well. So that's the other one. Now I thought we would have a look at the money, because like I said, I'm not here saying that I'm making thousands and thousands of dollars from scrapbook paper. I'm more here talking about the consistency and how I'm managing to put out things that are most of the time making a sale. But let's have a look at the money, because that is important as well. So if we have a look at the books that have made me the most money over the lifetime, the entire time that I've been on Amazon KDP, then the books that are in 2nd, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th and 10th are scrapbooks, so that's 6 out of the 10. The reason why that is different is that, of course, different types of book have different profit margins, and I find that my profit margin with scrapbook paper is slightly narrower, or I have to narrow it because the colour printing is more expensive. So for example, with notebooks I tend to make about £2 profit per book, which is about $2.50-ish, I would say. But with scrapbook paper I make anything from sort of £1.40 to maybe £1.80 something, sometimes £2. And the reason why that differs is because of a different sort of currency conversion rates and things like that as well. So I'm making a little bit less per book with the scrapbook paper. And that is something to bear in mind if you prefer putting out books that have a really chunky profit margin. If we now look at my top 10 earning books for this year, there's a bit of a shift, and that's because I have uploaded a lot more scrapbook paper this year than I did last year. So if we look at that, the books that have made me the most money this year, in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th place consecutively, it's scrapbook paper. And then in 7th, 8th and 9th place, it's also scrapbook paper pads. So 8 out of my top 10 earning books have made me the most money are scrapbooks. So I'm really pleased with that. And like I said, what feels great about it is knowing that when I'm making a book, in all likelihood, it's going to make some sales, and you don't get that feeling of sort of having, you know, wasted your time. I mean, arguably nothing's a waste of time because you learn from it, but you can end up feeling quite defeated with KDP when, or if you are putting out lots of books and only a tiny handful of them are making sales. So if we come back to this 75 or now 78% of them have made at least one sale, we need to have a think about why is that? Like, how is that the case? Because that's probably not the case for an awful lot of people, probably the vast majority of people who are uploading books to KDP. So I have made a list of what I hope is useful information, useful hints and tips that will kind of steer you in the right direction. I think a lot of the things that I'm about to say can also be applied to other types of books on KDP, but I am talking about them at the moment specifically about the scrapbooks that I have been making. Right, so in first place then, we have the quality of my front covers. They look like professionally designed front covers, and I've done that myself. I have taught myself how to do that. I use Canva for it, and I did a lot of research, and I've said this before, my research wasn't just based on what's selling on Amazon. I didn't want to create front covers that were sort of good enough and that were just matching other self-published scrapbooks. I did a lot of research into professional scrapbook brands, some like really famous ones, and I looked at things like the layout, the information that they put on the front cover and the back covers, and looked at the styles and the formatting, the fonts that they used, and could see how they were creating like a cohesive look, a recognizable brand, I suppose, or a recognizable look to their front covers, but also what looks professional and what doesn't. When you go on to self-published scrapbook paper on Amazon KDP, you can see people that are using like really bad fonts that nobody really uses anymore, and there's no little delicate shadows around things, and just elements that when you pick apart a professionally designed front cover, when you really pick that apart, you can see all of these different things that are going into it that actually make it look a lot better than the amateur ones. So amazing front covers, nothing amateur, and just be careful where you are researching what looks good. There's a lot more detail I could give you on that, but you know, the video will be far too long. In second place, improved research, and research that isn't just Amazon based. So taking my research off Amazon and really finding out where the scrapbooking and junk journaling community hang out. And if you can find that, then they kind of tell you, I mean, they don't, you know, say, oi, Mel, make me a scrapbook paper pad and whatever. But just when you can see them interacting with each other and with the different things that they're making, their different projects, you can see what things they appreciate about different papers and the types of colours and designs and things that they are interested in. I mean, there's all sorts of different places that you can look for that information. So as well as doing some research on Amazon, looking at some of that demand in terms of what's selling and who's searching for what things, actually doing some off Amazon research can give you a little bit of an edge, I think, in terms of coming up with something that perhaps other people haven't thought of, which actually links in really nicely to my third point, which is to be original. Don't copy what other people are doing. Currently, when you look on Amazon, I'll kind of spot a book and then I'll spot another 7 or 8 books that are basically exactly the same. For example, if you look up something like I don't know, like Gothic Halloween scrapbook paper, and you'll see like the original person that made the first book, and then there's all of these copycats that come after it. And you know, the first few copycats, you can see that they're making sales as well, but by the time you get down the end of the line and you're like the 30th person that's made the Gothic Halloween scrapbook paper, like no one's going to buy your stuff. And also, when you're that far down the line, your book needs to be different from the other 29. Otherwise, why would anyone want to buy it? Why would you expect anyone to buy your thing that's 30th in line after all of these other things when your thing is the same. It doesn't make sense. So just stop copying what other people are doing. Be original and come up with your own ideas and your own stuff, because putting out original work has so many benefits. I mean, on a personal level, it is so much more satisfying to pull together something that is unique, or at least if it can't be unique, something that is distinct from the work of other people. If you're putting out something that has some originality to it at least, then your work or your scrapbook paper pad starts to stand out from the crowd. And also what happens is when you are producing more original things, more original designs, you start to develop your own style, which is almost like an extra layer and is another thing that helps to pull you apart from your competition. And you will get people who buy from you because they just love the style of everything that you're producing and because it's cohesive as well. And that can come in many, many forms. One of the things that I think is fairly distinct, I would say, in like a sort of, not a set of my scrapbooks, I don't know how to describe it, but let's just say there's a kind of style of scrapbook paper book that I make, and I have a type of page in it that I don't really see in many other scrapbooks, or any other scrapbooks, I don't think. Certainly not self-published ones anyway. And so people know when they buy a scrapbook book from me, scrapbook paper book, I'm saying those words too many times at the moment. When someone buys a book from me, a certain type of scrapbook from me, they know that they're going to get one of those types of pages. It can be something as simple as that. Being original leads to you having your own style, which makes you even more distinct from what everyone else is doing. And leading on from that, it can make your work harder to copy, because let's face it, copycats are lazy. That's why they're doing it. They're trying to save themselves time, they're trying to save themselves effort. They are pretty lazy. So if you are producing something that's very distinct and a little bit more difficult to copy, they're going to steer clear of your work and choose somebody else's to copy. What's really interesting is the most copied books of mine, because people are doing it, and believe me, there's a couple of people that are sailing very close to the wind to me actually reporting them. But the ones that people are copying are the ones that are really simple and really straightforward, and some of the earliest ones that I was producing. Now mine are becoming a little bit more cohesive and there's more complexity to them. They are trickier, I think, for people to copy. Either that or they haven't found them yet. Who knows? But I suspect it's because they are harder to copy. Now, in fourth place, I would put, or I am putting, reviews and managing customer expectations. So the problem with scrapbook paper on Amazon is, first of all, it doesn't come with the perforations that you get on other independently published scrapbook paper. They tend to have, or they pretty much all have, the perforations where people can tear out the pages easily. So you have got to say in your description that the pages need to be cut out with a craft knife. Most self-publishers will do that and put that on there, but I still see some that don't. You also need to be prepared for the people who do not read that in the description. I think I've only got like a couple of negatives, or like quite low star reviews on my scrapbook paper. One of which was just from this woman who hadn't read in the description that there are no perforations. So, there's no accounting for those people. Those of you that, watch this channel and who also do reselling on eBay and Etsy and things like that, people don't read the descriptions there either. Again, it's a little bit of laziness, But you got to put it out there, because the majority of people will. And if you put information like that sort of up front and center, so kind of quite high up in the description basically, then you're managing expectations. Will you lose some customers? Yeah, of course you will. Of course you will, because there'll be people like that lady who do not want scrapbook paper that does not have perforations in it. So you'll lose those people, and quite frankly, that's probably a good thing if she's anything to go by. But If you manage expectations, you are mostly going to get people that understand what they're getting. There's other things in there as well. So the paper is paper, it's not card, and a lot of not independently published, like professionally published scrapbook paper pads will have very thick paper that is pretty much card in there. And so you need to have something in your description that talks about it. It's for paper crafts, it's not for card making and things like that. And just be as clear as possible about what people are getting. And I think that is something that I have got increasingly good at. And as a result, I have like the lower star reviews are pretty few and far between, which definitely helps the sales of your books. And my fifth point is something that I am not in a position to talk about at any great length at the moment, because it's something that I am still just making very tentative steps into and really do need to do a lot more of. But there is so much free marketing out there that you can use. So I've started creating pins for Pinterest. I've just started an Instagram account for my scrapbook paper, which it's got 2 posts on it. I've not really done anything with it yet, but you've got Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. You could start a scrapbooking YouTube channel if you've got the time to maintain it. All sorts of things like that really, I mean, I don't know if those... The trouble with Amazon KDP, just off on a tangent now, is they don't give you an awful lot of information, or any information really, about where your traffic is coming from. So I have put some pins onto Pinterest, and I don't know if they've had an impact, but the books that have got the pins on Pinterest are my top selling scrapbooks. And it's difficult to know what's come first or how much influence Pinterest has had on that at the moment, because as you can see from the spreadsheet that I put up at the very beginning, I've only put a few on there. I haven't done a lot or anything. But one of the things that I will say is that moving forward, that's going to be a big thing for me, and the A+ content, and also taking the scrapbook paper business off Amazon. Well, not off Amazon, but like leaving it on there, but you know what I mean. Also adding it to other platforms and creating additional revenue streams for that particular pen name. I hope you took some good notes on that. I did go on a bit, didn't I? But I hope that it's really, really helpful. And speaking of which, I have mentioned this in a previous video that I am really interested in putting together a mini course for you about scrapbook paper. Obviously scrapbook paper on Amazon KDP at the moment, but eventually I will probably add into that course everything that I have learned about building it out into a fully fledged business and kind of using other platforms and products and things like that to gain more revenue from the scrapbook paper designs. So what I've done is I have put I will tell you a bit more about it in a minute, but what I've done is I've got a sign up link, or it's not so much you're not signing up to anything as such, you're giving me your email address so that I know how many people are interested in it, so that I can see whether it's viable for me, financially viable, because I need to be paid for my time in making it. So I need to know who's interested. If you are interested, make sure that you go and kind of sign up. Give me your email. That's what I'm saying. I want your email address so that I know who's interested in that. Another thing that I'm also thinking of doing, which is not necessarily relevant to this particular video, is like a get off the ground with KDP, like a sort of a beginner's KDP mini course. You can also drop your email into that sign up box for that as well. And when I'm ready, when I've kind of got like the list of names of who's interested, I will email everyone and we'll figure out who's interested in what and so on. But about the mini course itself. So I've had a little bit of a think about it, because the last time I mentioned it, I have got quite a few people signed up who are interested. So let me talk you through what I've got in mind at the moment. So these will be the sort of the components of it, the syllabus, if you like. It will go into research, including off Amazon real world research, because again, that's something that I really highly recommend. And I will go into that in a lot more detail, and I'll tell you where to go and what to look at, and give you some examples of ideas that I've got from places that aren't on Amazon. I will go through the Amazon stuff as well, the sort of unpaid research and then the paid for research that you can do with Amazon. The other thing that it will include will be 6 different ways that you can make scrapbook paper designs that are creative and original and that will stand out and that won't break any copyright rules or anything like that. Currently, there is not going to be a section on AI as yet. Firstly, that needs to settle down and we need to know where the regulation of it is going to land before I would feel safe using that in my KDP books. That's my personal feelings on the matter. That's not to, you know, what's the term? Cast aspersions on anyone else who's doing things differently and using AI. That's fine. It's not for me as yet. And also, I've not really been happy with any results that have been generated sort of repeating pattern wise or what have you for scrapbook paper. Not as yet anyway. Seems to be able to cope with flowers, but not much else. So that component might be in there at some point in the future, but it won't be at the moment. But I have 6 other ways that you can create amazing, unique scrapbook paper for Amazon KDP. And we'll also look at the different types of page, sizes of books, how many pages to include, all of the sort of practical nitty-gritty stuff, as well as the creative design work itself too. And then in terms of uploading the books, this course is going to be better suited to you if you already know how to upload a book to Amazon KDP. That being said, you will be following me uploading the 6 different tutorial books that I will use for the 6 different types of sort of method of creating scrapbook paper. So you'll get quite the run through of how to do it. You might be able to get away with not knowing that before you start. Now, to be clear, there will be nothing to do with Amazon ads in there. That is not something I know enough about. It is not something I feel even remotely qualified or experienced enough to I mean, it would be frankly ridiculous if I tried to teach people how to do anything with Amazon ads. That being said, at some point in the future, that component might get added in, but it won't be there for that kind of original OG cohort that kind of goes through the course. What will come first, though, is everything that I'm learning about branding and marketing and things like that. Again, that won't be ready when you originally sign up. Like the core part of the mini course will be about the research, that is different ways of designing the books and getting them uploaded to Amazon. Now, the first cohort is going to be limited to 25 places. So, and that will be on a first come, first served basis. So you will need to be signed up because I'll announce it to the email list first before I talk about it on a video when it's ready, or if it's ready, it depends on the level of interest, like I said. If you are interested, get signed up. You'll be hearing from me probably within 3 or 4 weeks when I've got a list of people and I've decided whether it's worth doing or not. So I hope that you have learned something really useful from this video or been entertained by my chit chat, and I will see you again in the next video.